The morning sun hadn't yet crested the San Gabriel Mountains when the alert came through to DC-10 Aerial Firefighting Systems Operations Center at San Bernardino International Airport. Captain Danny Cordero was already reviewing weather reports when his phone buzzed with the dispatch notification. "We've got a major incident developing in Angeles National Forest," he announced to his crew, who were gathered for their morning briefing. "Santa Ana winds pushing 40 knots, relative humidity at 12% and dropping. Forest Service is requesting immediate response." First Officer Rick Burdick glanced at the tactical map displaying on the operations room's main screen. "That's going to put the fire path right toward La Canada Flint Ridge if we don't stop it fast." "Exactly," Danny replied, studying the developing situation. "Ground crews are reporting a 200-acre fire moving fast through dense chaparral. They need heavy air support now, before it gets into the residential areas." Within minutes, the massive DC-10, designated Tanker 1910, was being prepared for takeoff. The ground crew worked with practiced efficiency, loading 9,400 gallons of bright red fire retardant into the external tank system. The specially modified aircraft dwarfed the other tankers on the ramp, its distinctive three-engine configuration casting long shadows in the early morning light. In the cockpit, Danny ran through the pre-flight checklist with Rick and their flight engineer, Dave Slater. The radio crackled with updates from dispatch. "Tanker 1910, this is dispatch. Your lead plane will be spotter 241. They're already on station and report extreme fire behavior in the target area. Wind conditions are deteriorating." Danny keyed his mic. "Copy that, dispatch. We're 5 minutes from wheels up. What's the status of the temporary flight restriction?" "TFR is in place up to 15,000 feet. You'll have clear airspace for the drop zone." The massive jet thundered down the runway, its three engines propelling 175,000 pounds of aircraft and retardant skyward. As they climbed through 5,000 feet, they could see the massive smoke column rising from the Angeles National Forest, its dark gray mass twisting in the wind. "Spotter 241, this is Tanker 1910. We're approaching from the south at 8,500, Danny radioed. The lead plane, a twin-engine Beechcraft King Air, appeared ahead of them. "Copy that, 1910. I've got you visual. We've got an active crown fire moving northeast. Ground teams need an anchor point on the eastern flank. I'll show you the line." The smaller aircraft descended, with the DC-10 following at a safe distance. The lead plane's experienced pilot, Eddie Ramos, had been flying fire missions for 20 years. He knew exactly how to position the huge tanker for maximum effectiveness. "Okay, 1910, here's your run. We want to lay down a line from that ridge spine to the rock outcropping. Wind's going to push you left, so compensate accordingly. I'll give you a smoke marker on the start point." Danny watched as a white smoke trail appeared below, marking the beginning of their drop zone. "Copy your smoke, 241. Starting our run." The DC-10 descended to 200 feet above the terrain, remarkably agile for its size. Danny kept the aircraft steady as Rick called out airspeed and height. At precisely the right moment, Dave activated the computerized drop system. A massive red cascade deployed from beneath the aircraft, the retardant spreading into an even line nearly a quarter-mile long. The physics of the drop were complex. The material had to be released at exactly the right height and speed to create an effective barrier without dispersing in the wind. "Beautiful drop, 1910, Eddie called from the lead plane. That's going to give the ground crews exactly what they needed. Fire behavior is already changing where your line went in." Before they could return to base for reload, another call came through. "Tanker 1910, we've got a new start in Ventura County. They're requesting immediate support. Can you take the dispatch?" Danny checked their fuel state. "Affirm, dispatch. We can make Ventura after reload." Send us the coordinates. The next 12 hours became a blur of activity. The DC-10 crew made 6 drops on 3 different fires, working in coordination with smaller tankers and helicopters. As darkness fell, they switched to their night operations equipment, using sophisticated thermal imaging to continue their missions. The real test came near midnight, when they received an urgent call from the incident commander at the Angeles National Forest fire. "We've got spotting across our primary line," the IC reported. "New start is threatening a communications facility on Mount Wilson. Need your drop capabilities immediately." Danny studied the tactical display. Night operations near Mount Wilson's towers would be extremely challenging, even with their advanced equipment. The terrain was steep, the winds were gusting unpredictably, and the smoke was reducing visibility even further. "Copy that, IC. We'll need immediate coordination with ground units to confirm the drop zone is clear. This is going to be a precision run." As they approached the target area, crisis struck. A sudden wind shear rocked the massive aircraft, and warning lights flashed in the cockpit. One of their external tank sensors was showing a malfunction, threatening to compromise the drop system's accuracy. Danny had seconds to make a decision. The fire was making a run at critical infrastructure, but attempting a drop with potentially compromised equipment could be catastrophic. He keyed his radio, knowing the next few moments would test everything their team stood for. Danny's voice remained steady as he made his call. "Spotter 241, this is Tanker 1910. We're showing a possible tank sensor malfunction. Request immediate vector to test drop area." "Copy that, 1910, Dave responded without hesitation. "I've got a clear zone 2 miles southeast of your position. No structures, no ground crews. We can verify system function there." Dave was already running diagnostics on the tank system. "Captain, it's showing pressure fluctuations in segments 3 and 4. Could be sensor failure, could be actual system damage from the wind shear." "I see, this is Tanker 1910, Danny broadcasted. "We need 5 minutes to verify system integrity. Can your ground crews hold that long?" There was a moment of static before the response came. "5 minutes is all you get, Tanker 1910. We're deploying all available engines to structure protection, but this fire's moving fast." Danny banked the DC-10 toward the test area, his mind racing through contingencies. Behind him, Rick was already coordinating with their maintenance base in San Bernardino, transmitting real-time system data. Coming up on the test zone, Eddie called from the lead plane. "You've got clear air and no wind shear at 300 feet. Want me to mark it?" "Negative, 241. We can see the zone. Stand by for test drop." Danny brought the massive aircraft down to drop altitude, fighting the turbulent air. "Dave, give me a 100-gallon burst from sections 3 and 4 only." The flight engineer's fingers flew over his control panel. "Test drop armed. Releasing now." They watched as a small stream of retardant deployed from the suspect tank sections. The pattern was ragged on one side but still controllable. "Systems degraded but functional," Dave reported. "The computer can compensate for the pressure variance. We can still make an effective drop, but we'll need to maintain perfectly steady flight parameters." Danny had already made his decision. "I see, this is Tanker 1910. We're returning to the target area. Request ground confirmation of drop zone clear. Ground crews are pulled back, 1910. Drop zone is clear. Be advised we're seeing ember cast up to a mile ahead of the main fire." The DC-10 swung around in a wide arc, lining up for its approach to Mount Wilson. The night vision systems showed the fire's advance clearly, a wall of flame pushing through the canyons, throwing burning debris high into the air. "Spotter 241, paint the start point. We'll need precision guidance on this one." Eddie brought his aircraft down, releasing a bright marker flare. Start point marked. You've got a mile-long path to lay down. Terminal point is the ridge line ahead of the flames. Watch for rotor effect on the lee side of that peak. Danny focused intensely as he brought the DC-10 into position. Every factor had to be perfect: airspeed, altitude, wind correction, and release timing. One mistake could send thousands of gallons of retardant off target or, worse, onto ground crews. On final approach, he announced. Dave, set for full release, compensate for segments 3 and 4. The huge aircraft descended into the chaos of heat, wind, and smoke. Danny could feel the turbulence trying to push them off course, but he held firm, making micro-corrections with practiced skill. Target in sight, Rick called out. 3 seconds, 2, 1. Release, Danny commanded. The DC-10 shuddered as the retardant deployed. Through their night vision systems, they could see the massive red stream spreading out below them, creating a wide barrier exactly where it was needed. Direct hit. Eddie called from his vantage point. Coverage is good. Fire's already backing down where the line went in. That's going to hold, 1910. Outstanding work. The sense of relief in the cockpit was palpable, but short-lived. Their radio crackled with another urgent dispatch. Tanker 1910, we're showing multiple new starts in San Diego County. Lightning strikes from a dry cell moving through the area. How much flight time do you have remaining? Danny checked their numbers. We've got 4 hours of fuel and full retardant capacity after reload. Where do you need us? Multiple strikes in the Cleveland National Forest. 3 fires showing rapid growth. Local resources are stretched thin. Copy that, dispatch. Diverting to San Bernardino for reload, then we'll head south. As they turned toward their reload base, Danny could see other aircraft rising into the night sky, more DC-10s from their fleet, mobilizing to meet the expanding threat. The company's decision to equip for night operations was proving its worth yet again. The next several hours tested the limits of both crew and aircraft. They made multiple drops on the Cleveland National Forest fires, working in close coordination with other tankers and helicopters. The DC-10's massive retardant capacity proved crucial in containing the rapid spread of the lightning-sparked fires. Dawn was breaking over the Pacific when they finally got the call they'd been waiting for. Tanker 1910, all fires in your response area are showing containment. You're released to return to base. As they turned north, Danny reflected on the night's events. The sensor malfunction had been nerve-wracking, but it had also demonstrated the resilience of their systems and the skill of their crews. Every mission brought new challenges, but that's what made their work essential. The radio crackled one more time. Tanker 1910, be advised we're showing another red flag warning for tomorrow. Santa Anas are expected to return with increased strength. Danny smiled grimly. Copy that, dispatch. We'll be ready. Back at base, as the maintenance crew swarmed over the DC-10 to repair the tank system, Danny met with the other flight crews arriving from their night missions. Each had their own stories of close calls and successful drops, of fires stopped and communities protected. The company's operations center was already preparing for the next day's challenges. Weather maps showed the predicted wind patterns, satellite imagery displayed the dry fuel conditions, and dispatch was coordinating with multiple agencies to position their aircraft where they would be needed most. Captain Cordero, a voice called from the briefing room. We've got a request from Oregon. They're expecting severe lightning activity in the Cascade Range tomorrow. They want to pre-position 2 DC-10s for immediate response. Danny checked the duty roster. His crew had mandatory rest coming up, but he knew other teams were fresh and ready. The company's expanded fleet meant they could maintain coverage in California while supporting operations in other states. Get tankers 1912 and 1914 prepared for deployment to Oregon, he ordered. Make sure they're configured for high-altitude drops. Those mountain fires can be tricky. As he headed for his office to file his mission reports, Danny passed the maintenance hangar where Tanker 1910 was being serviced. The massive aircraft had proven itself yet again, despite the challenges. The tank sensor was being replaced, and the aircraft would be ready for the next call. A young mechanic approached him, clipboard in hand. "Captain, we found the cause of the sensor malfunction. Looks like heat damage from repeated low-level drops. We're upgrading the shielding on all aircraft in the fleet." Danny nodded appreciatively. This was why their company led the industry. They learned from every incident, constantly improving their aircraft and procedures. "Make sure those modifications are documented in the maintenance logs," he instructed. "And check the same sensors on the other aircraft. I want to prevent any similar issues before they become problems." The next shift was already arriving, pilots, mechanics, and support staff ready to take on whatever challenges the day might bring. Danny knew that somewhere in the western states, another fire was probably starting, another community would need protection, and another DC-10 would rise to meet the threat. As he completed his reports, a message flashed on his computer screen. The National Weather Service had just issued an unprecedented fire weather warning for the entire West Coast. The coming week would test their resources like never before, but that's exactly what they had built this fleet for. Danny began drafting plans for fleet deployment, knowing that every DC-10 in their inventory would likely be needed. From their bases in San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Marysville, the aircraft could reach any threat within hours. The night flying capabilities they demonstrated would be crucial in the days ahead. The intercom crackled. "Captain Cordero to operations, please. We have a new situation developing." He grabbed his flight bag, ready for whatever challenge came next. In this line of work, you learn to expect the unexpected and prepare for anything. That's what made DC-10 aerial firefighting systems the go-to resource for the most challenging fire situations. As he walked to operations, Danny could see Tanker 1910 through the hangar doors, its massive frame silhouetted against the morning sun. These aircraft had revolutionized aerial firefighting, and their story was still being written, one mission at a time. Danny strode into operations to find the room buzzing with activity. Satellite imagery on the main screen showed a massive fire complex developing in Northern California's Shasta Trinity National Forest. "It's bad," Operations Director Jack Foy said without preamble. "Drought conditions, 3 fires merging into one, and it's making a run toward several communities. Forest Service is requesting everything we've got." The thermal imaging showed a fire front nearly 10 miles wide, advancing at an unprecedented rate. Danny studied the terrain and weather data, already formulating a strategy. "This is exactly why we developed our multiple aircraft attack protocol," he said. "How many DC-10s can we get on station within the hour?" Jack pulled up the fleet status display. "We've got 5 aircraft within range. Tanker 1910 is back in service, 1912 and 1903 are at Bale, 1914 just finished reload at Sacramento, and 1915 can divert from that Mendocino operation." "Perfect. We'll hit it with everything we've got." Danny turned to the communications officer. "Get me a direct line to the incident command post." Within minutes, he was discussing strategy with the fire behavior analysts and incident commander. The plan came together quickly, a coordinated strike using all 5 DC-10s to lay down an unprecedented retardant line ahead of the main fire front. "This is going to take precise coordination," Danny briefed the assembled flight crews via video link. "We'll approach in echelon formation, 5 aircraft, quarter-mile spacing. That gives us a continuous retardant line over 2 miles wide. Timing has to be perfect." Captain Mario Martinez, now commanding Tanker 1912, raised a concern. "What about turbulence effects? We've never put this many heavy tankers into the same airspace in such tight sequence." That's why we'll maintain 300-foot vertical separation between aircraft, Danny explained. Lead plane will mark the line, tanker 1910 takes high position, each subsequent aircraft drops 300 feet lower. We'll use the terrain stepping down to our advantage. The plan was ambitious, but they had trained for this. Each pilot knew their role, understood the complexities of flying a massive aircraft in turbulent, smoke-filled conditions while maintaining precise position relative to multiple other aircraft. Time check, Jack announced. First aircraft needs to be airborne in 15 minutes to hit our window. The next few minutes were controlled chaos as crews ran to their aircraft. Danny climbed aboard tanker 1910, his crew already running through pre-flight checks. Across the ramp, he could see the other massive DC-10s preparing for takeoff. Tanker 1910, ready for takeoff, he radioed. One by one, the other aircraft reported ready. They would take off in reverse order, allowing the last aircraft to be first in position. The radio crackled with urgent updates from the fire scene. Fire front advancing at 2.5 miles per hour. Multiple spot fires occurring up to 2 miles ahead of main front. Current width of active fire line is 8.7 miles and growing. Danny's voice was steady as he addressed all crews on the tactical frequency. Remember your training. We've drilled this, we planned for this, and now we're going to execute. This is why we built this fleet. Tanker 1915 lifted off first, followed by 1914, 1913, and 1912. Danny took tanker 1910 up last, climbing quickly to take the high position in the formation. As they approached the fire zone, the sight was staggering. The smoke column rose to 35,000 feet, massive pyrocumulus clouds forming above the intense heat. Spotter 241, do you have visual on all 5 tankers? Danny checked with their lead plane. Affirm, tanker 1910. All aircraft in position. Beginning marking run now. The smaller aircraft descended ahead of them, releasing a series of smoke markers to indicate the drop zone. The DC-10s would have to lay their retardant precisely along this line to create an effective barrier. Tanker 1915, you're first up, Danny directed. Start your run.